Why do investors tolerate poor performance from fund managers when they're famous, but not from anonymous ones? I made a list of the reasons Nobel Prize-winning research shows why you do this and why you suffer and tolerate poor pension growth and do nothing about it and keep working more years than you need to, keep saving less than you should, spending less than you should because you have to save more for working longer. Why is it? So here are several reasons. One, authority bias. It's a psychological condition where because somebody is shown or depicted as having an area of authority, put in simple terms, the comfort of expertise. Oh, I've given it to an expert, so I should trust them with it. I shouldn't do anything. Now that in many areas like heart surgery is a sensible option. But in finance, it's surprisingly not. Because if you even looked at, well, the exams an independent financial advisor has to sit, the multiple choice exams with a 60% pass rate, where 25% of those scores are just going to come from random multiple choice answers, you'd soon realize they don't necessarily have the authority and the expertise you thought they did. Okay, so that's the first problem. Secondly, something called narrative protection. Underperformance with a story is forgivable. As long as the IFA, the fund manager, the pension fund gives you a story as to why it happened, even if that story just keeps going on and on and on, each month there's a different story, you're more likely to forgive them. This is just human nature, but it's also something where humans process uncertainty through narratives, not statistics. They should look at statistics, of course. If humans weren't the way they are, then everybody would be rich, of course. And it's the minority, such as myself, who would look at statistics, who will tend to do better, who will actually look at the data and not the narrative and the stories. It's also why fund managers and IFAs like to feed you the stories, not just the statistics. Number three, sunk costs and identity attachment. So sunk cost fallacy is, well, I've already lost this much with them. Let's see if they can make it back. It's the same mindset you have when you've lost money with a particular stock. You think, oh, I'm going to buy more of it because I need to make it back in that stock. As if that stock somehow had a memory that because you've lost money with it, you're more likely to make it back from it. Obviously not. The essential problem is that exiting an anonymous manager carries little reputational risk. This is the opposite of the sunk cost fallacy. This is where you don't have a problem getting rid of an anonymous manager. There's no public embarrassment. There's no narrative reversal. Nobody knew who they were. Maybe you just picked a bad one. Whereas with a famous one, you start thinking, is it me? Surely it can't be them. I must have done something wrong. Thus, the cost of being wrong is actually asymmetrical. And that's why you behave differently to whether they're famous or not, even with the same losses. So a famous manager is likely to be able to string you on for even longer. Number four, career risk and institutional safety. When your IFA, your fund manager, is shoving you with St. James's Place, they're going to show glossy little brochures showing how it's a big company and give you this institutional camouflage. So what happens is the tolerance gap for poor performance is reinforced by the career risk they have. They know they won't get sacked if they show you St. James's Place, but if they show you somebody who's lesser famous, lesser well-known, but statistically is doing better, but doesn't have the same narrative with the adverts that the big name famous fund has, then they know they might get sacked for giving you an unknown name. Even if you lost less or even didn't lose with them, the idea would be, who's this? Who have you gone with? It's the same as nobody ever got sacked buying IBM. It's that notion. So fame functions basically as a form of insurance against accountability. Number five, the illusion of skill persistence. Investors tolerate famous managers because they believe in the persistence of skill, despite overwhelming empirical evidence that suggests Persistence of performance in the fund management industry is rare. Now, at this point, people still don't get it and say, so which manager should I trust? None of them, because institutionally, we know over 90% over the long term do not have persistence of outperformance. And the reason is the way funds are institutionally structured is why Nobel Prize winning research from Eugene Wemer proves they will always underperform, because they gather so much capital that they have to put it into different geographies, different stocks. So they're picking from a very small group of companies each time. And the chances those companies just happen to be really good is minimized because they're picking from a small group. Whereas if you do what Warren Buffett does, or what you have the ability to do because you don't have billions to deploy, so buying 5% of your portfolio into a company isn't going to take over the company because you don't have billions. 5% of billions might buy some companies outright, won't for you. So what would happen is you'd have a bigger gene pool to pick from. That's the problem with institutions. Again, people will say, well, which expert shall I go to? They just won't get what we're showing them, what we're explaining, because what they're resisting is what they should do is learn how to do it themselves. So anyway, that's 5, the illusion of skill persistence. Number 6, social proof and the fear of being alone. Fund managers are very good at this. They will show you lots and lots of people, maybe big rooms with lots of people within them. And you will feel less pain losing 10% with a fund others went into than if you lost 10% with a fund nobody else went into. Daniel Kahneman got the Nobel Prize in economics for showing that, essentially. So social proof, investors ask not, is the manager underperforming, but who else still believes? Now, those are 2 very different questions. And as long as other investors remain committed, exiting feels premature. And you keep losing money and stay poorer for longer, especially if you can get some confirmation from an internet search, some journalist who said, well, is it time that Nick Train's going to turn around, or Fundsmith might improve, or St. James's Place might turn it around? And you will say, well, look, somebody somewhere, if you look hard enough, you'll always find somebody somewhere, will say, yeah, this could be the bottom. They won't get any worse. They won't destroy any more money than they've already destroyed of yours. So tolerance is sustained collectively, not individually. 7, what this reveals about investor behavior. Let's sum it up in many ways. You seek reassurance, not optimization. Performance is interpreted through identity and narrative. Rational updating is overridden by emotional continuity. And institutional incentives favor safety over excellence. All of those things then combined make what you might call a perfect storm of poor performance amongst fund managers, people continuing to give them money, and this vicious cycle of, well, people are giving them money, so we should continue giving them money, even though they're underperforming, but I'm sure they'll come around. It's a great business to be in if you're a fund manager. I suggest you have a look at campaignforamillion.com, download one of my 18 books completely for free. And in those, I explain how you should actually be picking your own portfolios, kicking out the fund manager and their fees, and getting far better returns yourself. We've even created a bunch of free tools and calculators, completely free, don't even need your email, so that you can work out how bad your fund is. It rates your fund and how much money you need to retirement and where you are now and how to get to where you need to go to. Okay, any questions at all, have a look at campaignforamillion.com. My email's on there. We've got phone numbers, all the rest of it. Get in touch with us and we'll answer your questions, because we'll turn your questions into an anonymized video response, which is what this was. The idea for this video came from somebody who'd emailed us. Thank you very much.